Let's move on to the next story that's actually been making headlines. The Prime Minister is on his visit to Mauritius, which he wrapped up today. He was conferred with the island nation's highest national award. Now, while accepting the honor at the National Day celebrations in Port Louis, the Prime Minister said that this was an honor for 1.4 billion Indians. The two countries decided to elevate their ties to an enhanced strategic partnership. Taking to social media platform X, the Prime Minister said that he held discussions with his Mauritius counterpart, which ranged from infrastructure, housing, digital technology, health and more. India and Mauritius have signed 8 agreements to bolster cooperation across various sectors that include trade, maritime security as well. These agreements aim to enhance the maritime data and of course the agreement as far as credit facility is concerned between the two countries to combat money laundering, boost cooperation in the MSME sector as well. But the agreement on the front of maritime security is perhaps being considered the most important, with both nations agreeing to counter the growing threats as far as challenges in the Indian Ocean region are concerned. Now, let's take a look at what all has been agreed to in the area of maritime security between the countries. Cooperation on provisioning of defense and maritime assets is one of the key aspects. There's also increased deployment of ships and aircraft for joint maritime surveillance. Deepening cooperation towards securing the EEZ of Mauritius. There's also a very key aspect as far as National Maritime Information Sharing Center to enhance the maritime domain awareness. Cooperation by providing expertise in fields of marine operations as well as marine engineering is also a very important aspect, as well as a customized training program to meet the growing needs of Mauritius police force as well. So is India's sphere of influence in the Indian Ocean growing? Let's take a look at this map. This is the Indian Ocean as well as a maritime game that's taking place. India, of course, present at Port Blair. There's Visakhapatnam, Kochi, Karwar and Mumbai. But also, these are the Indian ports that we are talking about. There are also ports and areas such as Mauritius here. We are looking at Chinese presence that is particularly there in Maldives, in Hambantota in Sri Lanka, Colombo in Sri Lanka, Port Klang, Malaysia, as well as Kuantan in Malaysia, Sunadia, Bangladesh, as well as we've seen Gwadar, Karachi and Oman as well. And these are, of course, the ports that we're seeing where India's influence has been rising in recent days. There's, of course, Djibouti, there is a Kuwait that we're talking about, and, of course, also Diego Garcia, where there is, of course, presence that we're talking about as far as US presence is concerned in this area, where, of course, India in several of these regions, including in Southeast Asia, where Indian Navy has the rights of docking as well. We'll quickly go into the debate to look at what this really means as far as India and the entire Indian Ocean region is concerned.
You were watching the News Hour at 10. Agenda, debate number 2 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
Maj Gen GD Bakshi continues with us. Also joining us is Andrew K P Leung, independent China strategist. Maj Gen GD Bakshi, we all know how significant the Indian Ocean region is for us. I mean, the ocean is named after India, but in recent years, there has been a string of pearls strategy that China has actually, been attempting to influence in the past 2 decades. India has been attempting to counter that. How successful and significant is this particular visit to Mauritius in context of all of that?
The visit to Mauritius is crucial, especially for the domain of our maritime security, for the freedom of navigation on the high seas, which is an eternal principle, for freedom of movement of trade and shipping unhindered, supply lines can move, function freely across the oceans. It is significant. That is because of the geostrategic location of the Mauritius and the simple fact that it has a large Indian diaspora. It is ruled by a Prime Minister of Indian ethnic origin. 80% of the Mauritanians are Indians from their ethnic extraction. They are a part of our extended diaspora. Diego Garcia, the most important American air base, has been taken from Mauritius. It was taken by the British and then handed over to the Americans. It is one of the prime critical American military bases in the Indian Ocean region. So, and in recent times, as you very rightly pointed out, even the Chinese Navy, it is now the largest navy in the world with over 350 ships. It outnumbers the navy of the United States of America.
Right.
United States of America. And it has been trying to extend its reach. Initially, because of anti-piracy operations, it started taking part in the anti-piracy patrols, and then it has established the base at Djibouti. A massive military base has been established by the, and it is a military base, it's not just a berthing area. You know, the PLA is there, the PLA Navy is there in big strength. And as per the strategy of the string of pearls, they have been trying to surround India all through the Indian Ocean arc.
Let me bring in.
You know,
let me bring in.
Inroads.
I think those are some very important points that you've made. Let me just bring in Andrew K P Leung. Andrew K P Leung, India's counter-encirclement strategy has been the necklace of diamonds appealing to like-minded nations, and India's influence also has been growing in recent years. China perhaps has had a head start, but how do you see this playing out, particularly given that China at this point of time also India's concerns include, you know, places like Coco Islands where there have been extension of runways, radars, something that China officially denies, but there has been satellite imagery that says or at least suggests to the contrary.
Even though the islands where China's got influence over are termed the string of pearls by India, as if China's trying to contain India, but actually that's not the case in the eyes of Beijing. China doesn't rely on the military. China's influence is exerted because of it's the largest trading partner to 128 countries around the world, compared with only 58 for the United States, let alone India. And China is the primary competitor. It's by no means not India. Of course, it's the United States, and whose interests are at odds with China. But as far as India is concerned, Beijing doesn't see India as an enemy or even as a competitor. I mean, it's a neighbor. Of course, there are territorial disputes, but these disputes are amenable to solution. And then the relationship between the two countries is now thawing. It's now on the upward trend. So I don't think that this can be seen as a confrontation. Now, as far as Mauritius is concerned, of course, Mauritius industry is based on tourism, but there is a lot of trade as well, and financial services. And there's part of China's economic relationship. In fact, Mauritius has signed a free trade agreement with China dating back to 2019. And no country can, in this multipolar world, no country should be regarded as belonging to any particular bloc, because the idea of blocs doesn't work anymore. And countries can have allies and also can have competition with many other countries.
Absolutely. So but you know, Mr. Andrew K P Leung, while you're absolutely factually right that there was a free trade agreement with China way back in 2019, but the point that is being made is that in this particular visit, there's also been an enhanced strategic partnership that involves a lot of military hardware that will now be traveling to Mauritius. Already, of course, a lot of it there, but there will be an enhanced such partnership, you know, that will be going from India and Mauritius and the two countries cooperating together. And let me bring in Maj Gen GD Bakshi on that, because Maj Gen GD Bakshi, you know, while it's very easy for Mr. Leung to suggest that China doesn't see India as a threat, so on and so forth, it's only a neighbor, the larger question is Chinese expansionism, particularly in the South China Sea. There are multiple incidents where different countries, leave alone India, have had serious issues of concern with China and its growing maritime aggression.
Absolutely. You see, after all, when the Chinese have increased the size of their navy to the largest navy in the world, they're going in for a 5th aircraft carrier, which will be bigger than some of the American aircraft carriers, nuclear-powered carrier. you are building a fleet of over 60 nuclear submarines, well then the very fact of, being, you are posing a threat to your neighbors. Such a navy is not meant for sitting just in the docks and harbors. It does operate out. It is operating off the shores of Australia. Yes, we all have freedom of navigation, but then the very fact of your presence indicates or can be interpreted as a threat or a threat in being by your neighbors. It's your actions which convince them otherwise, right? Whether they are benign or hostile. The simple fact is that yes, Leung is right. We've had a thaw in our relations. We had a thaw in our relations, and that was based upon certain logic of geopolitics. But then, to our amazement, just not even a month after the thaw, we were suddenly told of the Chinese dam on the Yarlung Sangpo,
Right.
which has serious downstream consequences for all the lower riparian countries, including India, Bangladesh, etc.
Yes.
But
Yes.
I thought it was not a very reassuring act to announce it just about a month after we had agreed to a thaw.
Right.
And we had started, separation of our
There's
troops
limited
in
time.
Ladakh.
I'm sorry I'm interrupting you, General Bakshi. There's limited time. Andrew K P Leung, quick response from you, because actions speak louder than words. Aggression is there and seen in, various acts. It's not just one, but multiple acts. And, what we've seen, in fact, what General Bakshi was referring to, as far as what Sangpo and what has happened over there, that certainly does not speak for good neighborly relations, let alone what has happened earlier along the LAC.
Well, I think what one country's actions to defend its own interest can be regarded as aggression by another. I mean, that's quite normal sometimes. But I think that the relationship should be seen in a broader context. Of course, there are differences. Of course, there are areas where the two sides' interests do not coincide. But I don't think that the relationship be pitched to such an extent as if the two countries are at loggerheads with one another. I think that's not the reality.
All right, let's leave it there. Andrew K P Leung as well as Maj Gen GD Bakshi, I'd like to thank both of you for joining us. And let's look at what really ultimately prevails in the Indian Ocean region. It's a string of pearls or whether it's a necklace of diamonds. In either case, very, very important strategically speaking from India's maritime security point of view. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.